This is Mac OS Ken.
A weird Wednesday for Apple Watch. Apple says Epic owes it millions, and new operating systems next week. It is Thursday, the 18th of January, 2024. I'm Ken Ray, and this is news from Mac OS Ken, brought to you by yours truly and sponsored by Coda, your all-in-one collaborative workspace. Get started for free and get a $1,000 credit at coda.io/macosken. This show is also supported by people like you, patrons through Patreon. Find out more and add your support at patreon.com/macosken. If you've heard that the ban on the import and sale of Apple Watch Series 9 and Apple Watch Ultra 2 is on again in the US, never mind. That was the thinking for most of the day Wednesday. Articles all over the place, including one from TechCrunch, said the U.S. International Trade Commission had succeeded in getting the ban back together, and that Apple's request for a stay on the ban pending appeal of a patent infringement claim had been denied. For the first part of the day, the report said the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Federal Circuit denied the request formally on Wednesday, based on a number of factors under consideration, like whether or not Apple had a good chance of succeeding in its appeal, though the court also went out of its way to note that this denial doesn't reflect on the merits of the appeal overall. While working on this story Wednesday, I had written that there was a good chance that it would have changed by the time you got this. But why even wait that long? There were indications earlier this week that Apple had found a workaround. At the beginning of the week, the company whose patent the U.S. International Trade Commission says the devices are violating, Massimo, indicated that the U.S. Customs and Border Protection Agency, responsible for enforcing import bans, had approved technical changes to the watches, including the removal of the blood oxygen sensor. The blood oxygen sensor in the watches is the patent that Apple's alleged to have infringed. Earlier this week, a piece from the Wall Street Journal said that approval from the customs agency would allow the company to maintain sales of its Apple Watch even if it loses the requested stay. Now, having lost the stay, that looks to be the way Apple is going. Wednesday evening, just before I went to record this, 9 to 5 Mac ran a piece centered on a statement from the Cupertino company. After stating its continued disagreement with the patent infringement finding and its belief that that finding should ultimately be reversed, the statement said pending the appeal, Apple is taking steps to comply with the ruling while ensuring customers have access to Apple Watch with limited disruption. These steps include introducing a version of Apple Watch Series 9 and Apple Watch Ultra 2 in the U.S. without the blood oxygen feature. There is no impact to Apple Watch units previously purchased that include the blood oxygen feature. In news to confuse, the blood oxygen app will still be present on the new watches, though it will not work. 9 to 5 Mac says tapping on the app on the watch will direct users to the Health app on an associated iPhone. That will link to a support article with more information. The company says the modified models will be up on their website beginning 6 a.m. Pacific today, the 18th of January. They will also go on sale today in Apple stores. With the legal fight between Apple and Epic theoretically over, it is time for the parties to settle up. I told you yesterday that the U.S. Supreme Court had declined to hear appeals from the two companies. That meant that rulings from a lower court would stand. Those included one saying that Apple did not have to open iPhone to sideloading and third-party app stores in the U.S. The other said that Apple did have to let developers direct customers to purchasing mechanisms outside the App Store. Apple was quick to make the changes ordered by the court, and boy did CEO of Epic Tim Sweeney hate those changes. After listing what he did not like, Sweeney said his company would contest Apple's bad faith compliance plan in district court, which is why I say the legal fight between Apple and Epic is theoretically over. The first part's done, though. and it is time for the parties to settle up. A piece from 9 to 5 Mac says Apple is looking to recoup legal costs from the Fortnite publisher. Cost of this fight, $73 million. According to a post online from GameSpray, who's apparently been over the court filing, Apple wants Epic Games to reimburse $73 million and counting, the dispute isn't over yet, in litigation expenses. Apple says it spent $82.9 million defending against the case, adjusts that to $81.5 million, then deducts 10% as Epic prevailed on 1 of 10 counts, thus $73.4 million. 9 to 5 Mac says Apple is going after Epic for legal expenses per the Apple Developer Program License Agreement, which Epic was in when this whole thing started. According to the piece, Clause 10 of the agreement says developers agree to indemnify Apple against legal expenses incurred in responding to a breach of the agreement. Put differently, you mess with the bull, you get the horns. You also pay to have the horns cleaned once the bull is through goring you. Get your updating digits ready. Just about every Apple device is in line for an operating system update next week. Mac Rumors ran a number of reports Wednesday letting readers know about new release candidates for upcoming OS updates. New versions of iOS and iPadOS 17.3 were seeded to both developers and Apple's public testing program, along with release candidates of macOS Sonoma 14.3, watchOS 10.3, and tvOS 17.3. It's not the release of the release candidates that lets us know that next week's the week. It's the press release Apple issued about the new Black Unity band for Apple Watch. Of the band, Apple says the new Black Unity collection introduces new expressions inspired by the resilience and beauty of the Black community. Blooming flowers and vibrant colors present Pan-Africanism and symbolize generations working together to address injustice and dismantle systemic barriers. As they have in years past, the new bands arrive with corresponding watch faces as well as wallpapers for iPhone and iPad. The Unity Bloom watch face requires Apple Watch Series 4 or later running watchOS 10.3. The associated wallpapers require iOS and or iPadOS 17.3. Apple's press release says both of those will be available next week. As for the watch band, it is available to order now on Apple's site. It'll run buyers $49 and land on store shelves and one imagines front porches next Tuesday, the 23rd of January. More news in a moment, but first a word from today's sponsor, Coda, your all-in-one collaborative workspace. Does it ever happen to you that you're working on a project with somebody else? They're talking about facts or figures and you have no idea what they're talking about? Happens to a friend of mine all the time because she is working on a centralized app and this one coworker keeps working from a spreadsheet, accessible and updatable by nobody but that coworker. 1995 called. They want that person back. Better to work with a solution full of solutions, like Coda. Coda puts everybody on the same page, literally. By putting documents, spreadsheets, and apps on one platform, Coda stops you from hopping from app to app to app, and the best part, nobody gets left behind. Coda helps centralize the work you're doing, the tools you're using, and the knowledge you need. If you want a platform that empowers your startup to strategize, plan, and track goals effectively, you can get started with Coda today for free and get a $1,000 credit at coda.io/MacOSCan. That's a special limited time offer for startups, and that means you can begin planning right now at no cost. That's coda.io/macOSKen to get started for free and get a $1,000 credit. You can't beat that price. I really dig Coda, and I think you will too. Check it out today, coda.io/macOSKen. Apple and one of its partners are strengthening their stances in India. We'll start with the partner. A piece from TechCrunch says the Cupertino company's primary manufacturing pal, Foxconn, has set up a joint venture with Indian IT giant HCL Group to establish semiconductor packaging and testing operations on the subcontinent. In a statement to TechCrunch, the manufacturer said Foxconn looks forward to jointly setting up outsourced semiconductor assembly and test operations in India with HCL. Through this investment, the partners aim to build an ecosystem and foster supply chain resilience for the domestic industry. The piece says Foxconn is committed to investing billions of dollars in India to bolster its manufacturing for customers, including Apple and Xiaomi. This particular project will see Foxconn invest $37.2 million, giving the Taiwanese company a 40% stake in the Indian facility. Something a bit more showy for Apple itself on the subcontinent. A piece from the Indian Express has word of a new 15-story office for Apple in Bengaluru that is apparently open for business. The report seems to put the office at the city's civic center. Located in Minsk Square, the space is said to be in the vicinity of the Karnataka State Legislature, the region's high court, a cricket stadium, the 150-year-old Kuban Park, and its associated metro station. In a statement to the Indian Express, Apple noted a number of teams already at work in Bengaluru, including software engineering, hardware technologies, operations, customer support, and others. The statement had Apple saying it was thrilled with the new expansion, a workspace it says was created to foster innovation, creativity, and connection. Secondhand Apple hardware isn't worth what it used to be to Apple, not even what it was worth earlier this week. A piece from Mac Rumors says the Cupertino company has adjusted trade-in values for certain hardware here in the States. The moves aren't huge, though. When you're talking about applying the value of the old thing to the cost of a new thing, every little bit helps. Or hurts. According to the Mac Rumors list, maximum trade-in values on the iPhone 14 line drop between $30 and $50 depending on the model. Max values on Apple Watch drop between $5 and $35, and maximum trade-in values on Mac models fell between $20 and $80. A full list of products accepted and possible prices can be found on Apple's trade-in site. You can find that at apple.com/shop/trade-in. A very stylish new series from Apple TV Plus has got a trailer. The Cupertino streamer issued a press release Wednesday teasing the new look, scheduled to premiere on Valentine's Day. Set against the World War II Nazi occupation of Paris, the release says the new look focuses on the pivotal moment in the 20th century when the French city led the world back to life through its fashion icon, Christian Dior. As Dior rises to prominence with his groundbreaking, iconic imprint of beauty and influence, Coco Chanel's reign as the world's most famous fashion designer is put into jeopardy. The show boasts a very impressive cast. It includes Ben Mendelsohn as Dior, Juliette Binoche as Chanel. They are joined by Maisie Williams, John Malkovich, Emily Mortimer, Klaus Bong, and Glenn Close. Inspired by true events and filmed exclusively in Paris, the first 3 episodes of the 10-episode drama hit Apple TV Plus on Wednesday, the 14th of February. You can scope the trailer now on YouTube. And finally today, it's got to be one of the weirder of the season's annual awards, but you kind of got to like its attitude. Deadline has word of this year's winners of AARP's Movies for Grown-Ups Awards. The site explains AARP's awards spotlight films and TV content that feature crucial issues, thoughtful storylines, and top performances that speak directly to the 50-plus audience. That's annoying. 2 films from Apple took 3 of this year's awards. Deadline says Killers of the Flower Moon was named Best Picture. You'd think that would make Martin Scorsese Best Director, but it did not. That honor went to Oppenheimer director Christopher Nolan. The film did produce another Grown-Ups Award for Apple, though, given to Robert De Niro for Best Supporting Actor. Apple's 3rd award went to Still, a Michael J. Fox story, which was honored as Best Documentary. macOS Ken, brought to you by me and sponsored by Coda. Get started for free and get a $1,000 credit at coda.io/macOSKen. This show is also supported by people like you, patrons through Patreon. Find out more and add your support at patreon.com/macOSKen. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media. Online at backbeatmedia.com. You can reach me a couple of ways. Info at macosken.com or call 716-780-4080. Until next time, that is news from macOS Ken. I'm Ken Ray.
Ciao.